UN Refugee Agency says it's deeply alarmed as escalating attacks in northern Mozambique forced tens of thousands to flee. More than 100,000 people have escaped their villages in just the past week, with violence now spreading into districts once considered safe.
It's a fourth massive influx that Mozambique has faced in the last months, and resources are now really missing. The response is insufficient. People need, of course, assistance. They need food, they need shelter, they need water, they need support, and they arrive traumatized. Mental health is absolutely a requirement here too. And of course, the capacity is not there. The host communities are already overwhelmed. And as a result, they live in community shelters. They live in classrooms. Every morning, we see a new group of women coming to us to complain that they have been victims of sexual assault during the night. So here, solidarity is required, international solidarity is required, so that we can bring to the people the most urgent humanitarian assistance, I would even say life-saving assistance.
The Cabo Delgado conflict has already displaced 1.3 million people, and in 2025 the violence is spreading into Nampula and Niassa, threatening communities that once offered refuge.
The woman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, citizens nationwide and across our district are pushing back on AI data centers. They're concerned these facilities demand massive amounts of energy and water, driving up rising regional utility costs even more. How much more will our citizens be forced to pay for power and water? They have a right to know. Will our building trades be true partners in economic growth or just temporary labor while facing higher utility bills at home? And how many permanent jobs will these largely opaque facilities actually provide? Exactly which out-of-town interests will get the profits if these firms succeed? Residents across our region complain state and local approvals are moving too quickly. In Ohio, the crooked PUCO and Ohio's legislature have granted giant tax breaks to data centers, while local township officials remain in the dark about details. That's not fair. Ohioans know what secrecy and inside deals bring. First Energy scandals led to indictment, prison terms, and even suicides. Ohio State House corruption rewards big business and harms the public. The American people deserve to know how AI data centers will affect their communities. Public hearings must be more robust and factual, not merely road shows by proponents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Good morning. I'm Craig DeGrelli. We begin this morning with President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, both defending the administration's boat strike campaign while also distancing themselves from the most explosive detail: the second strike that killed the survivors of that September 2nd attack in the Caribbean. At a cabinet meeting Tuesday, both men insisted they didn't know a follow-up strike had even happened.
Somebody asked me a question about the second strike. I didn't know about the second strike. I didn't know anything about people. I wasn't involved in it. I knew they took out a boat. But I would say this, they had a strike.
Hegseth echoed that, saying he witnessed the first strike but stopped watching and left before the second one happened.
I watched that first strike live. As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour and 2 hours, whatever, where all the sensitive site exploitation digitally occurs. So I moved on to my next meeting. A couple of hours later, I learned that that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do, and by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat.
The White House now says Vice Admiral Mitch Bradley ordered that second strike. Lawmakers from both parties want answers, some even questioning whether killing survivors could constitute a war crime. Democrat John Garamendi says there's no reason to hide behind classified briefings, writing, "If Hegseth believes his actions were lawful, he should not be afraid to explain himself to Congress in full view of the nation, instead of burying this potentially criminal activity in closed-door meetings." But the administration isn't backing down. Instead, Hegseth is doubling down on the mission, and so is the president. Trump says the boat operation has choked off drug routes and that the next phase is coming inside Venezuela.
And we're going to start doing those strikes on land, too. You know, the land is much easier. It's much easier. And we know the routes they take. We know everything about them. We know where they live. We know where the bad ones live, and we're going to start that very soon.
It would mark a major escalation, as the administration already acknowledges at least 21 maritime strikes and more than 80 people killed so far, all of the dead labeled narco-terrorists. Vice Admiral Bradley is set to brief lawmakers on Thursday.
In a dramatic turn in the U.S.-Germany relations, the Pentagon has reportedly cut off communication with Germany. And this comes as Washington has moved to reduce its direct involvement in the Ukraine war and in Europe as such, urging NATO members to play a bigger role in their defense. The German army chief saying that communications between the Pentagon and the German Defense Ministry have been sharply reduced. The top military officer saying he now relies on German diplomats in Washington to find somebody in the Pentagon for basic information about U.S. policy. According to Germany's army chief, the cracks in the U.S.-Germany relations are not new. In fact, saying that the Trump administration offered no warning to Berlin about its move to suspend certain weapons shipments to Ukraine early this year. Let's just break this down further. The United States has traditionally treated Germany as one of its most important European allies. Germany hosts the highest number of active duty U.S. military personnel in Europe. And there are about 35,000 soldiers stationed at German bases, which also serve as staging posts for American operations across Africa and West Asia. Earlier in the year, the U.S. had planned to deploy Tomahawk long-range missiles in Germany by next year. The U.S. has vowed development of hypersonic weapons that have a longer range than the current capabilities in Europe. After Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, Germany agreed to work towards spending 2% of its economic output on defense within a decade. But its progress was slow in the years that followed, and Donald Trump complained in his first term, remember, that Germany and other NATO members were not paying their share. With the US winding down activity in Europe in a way, Germany has recognized that it needs to rearm. It is apparently looking beyond the US for air defense weaponry. Reversing its history, Germany is purchasing advanced weapon systems from Israel. It has signed a $4.3 billion defense deal to acquire the Israeli-made Arrow 3 air defense missile system. The Arrow 3 system is designed to take out ballistic missiles while they are still outside of the atmosphere. Not just that, Germany is permanently stationing troops beyond its borders for the first time since the Second World War. Berlin mulls turning the armed forces of Germany into the strongest conventional force in Europe by 2029. This after warnings from the defense minister and other officials who claim that Russia could attack the NATO in the coming years. But Moscow has vehemently rejected those claims as unfounded. It says Western governments are deliberately using the threat of Russian aggression to stoke fears and justify rapid militarization across the European Union.
The New York Times reported that you had a phone call with Maduro. Did you?
I don't want to comment on it. The answer is yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about it?
No, I can't do that.
Mr. President, would you say it went well?
No, I wouldn't say it went well or badly. It was a phone call.
The Venezuelan government has told us that they've received 2 authorization requests to fly deportation flights directly from the United States into Venezuela for this week. These authorization requests appear to have been made, of course, after the US President Donald Trump posted in a post on Truth Social. The Maduro government here in Caracas is all too happy to point out these contradictions between what Donald Trump said on Truth Social on Saturday. So if you fly into Venezuela, you fly there on your own risk. And what his government is doing less than 2 days later, which is requesting authorization to fly government-run planes directly into Caracas. We did ask for comment to the White House. We haven't heard back from them directly. However, these signals 2 things, I think, that are important to point out. The number one is that despite the confrontational rhetoric that is going on between Caracas and Washington, despite all of that, there is still some level of communication, at least from state to state, from members of the Trump administrations to members of the Maduro government, in order to coordinate these flights. And the second one is that, of course, even though Donald Trump is adamant that the U.S. will start conducting strikes on Venezuelan soil very, very soon. He said that once again on Tuesday. Well, it's unlikely that he would do that as US government planes are indeed in Venezuelan territory, so probably not before this upcoming Friday.
No queremos la paz de los esclavos, ni queremos la paz de las colonias. Colonia, nunca. Esclavos, jamás. The Queens, the peace, the union, and the victory forever, victory forever, victory forever.
Imagine waking up to find that your entire immigration process, your green card, your citizenship interview, and everything has been suddenly frozen. No warning, no timeline, nothing. That is exactly what's happening to 19 countries, and they are dealing today. Well, hi, this is Navibal and you're watching Times XP. So today let me break down this development that comes from Washington. The Trump administration has officially paused all immigration application, green card, citizenship, and almost everything for the immigrants from 19 non-European countries. These are the same countries that were already hit by a partial travel ban back in June. Now, the restrictions are even tighter. The list includes Afghanistan, Somalia, Iran, Libya, Sudan, Yemen, Haiti, Burma, Chad, Congo, and several more like Laos and Venezuela. So, what triggered this sudden pause? According to the official memo, this move comes at the last week's shocking attack on the US National Guard members in Washington, when an Afghan man, well, he has also been arrested for that. One guard member was killed, another is fighting for life. Since the attack, the administration has shifted the focus sharply towards legal immigration, not just the legal border crossings, but more than that. So here's where the things get even tensed and really escalated. And here's where the tensions get escalated. President Trump has been using the usual harsh language about some migrant groups, recently calling Somalis garbage and saying that they don't want them in the US. This is rhetoric combined with new policy signals a major tightening in America's immigration system. But what does this pause actually mean? It means cancelled the oath ceremonies, stopped naturalization interviews, and green card filled and pulled back in the recent reviews. And in some cases, people may also have asked to appear for the new interviews. Immigration lawyers say that they are already in the chaos. According to the American Immigration Lawyers Association, dozens of people from these countries have appointments cancelled without any explanation. And here comes the twist. This is not just about the national security. Analysts say that this may be a part of a broader political push. For what? Well, to reshape the immigration. Blame previous administration for being too soft. So, what happens next? Now all we know is that there is no timeline, no certainty, and no clarity. What do you think? Is this about safety or it is about politics? Tell me what you think in the comments.
Ukraine really stands at a critical juncture. The negotiations towards peace are ongoing. While we see that Russia is increasing its attacks, they are intensifying. And we see also in parallel the growing needs for financing of Ukraine. The IMF estimates that Ukraine will need 135 billion euros for the next 2 years. This is needed to keep the state and the basic services running, so the civilian side, but also to continue enabling the brave resistance on the battlefield of Ukraine, so the military side. And since pressure is the only language the Kremlin responds to, we can also dial it up. We have to increase the costs of war for Putin's aggression, and today's proposal gives us the means to do this. Today, we are proposing to cover 2/3 of Ukraine's financing needs for the next 2 years. So this is 90 billion euros. The remainder would be for international partners to cover.
It is, of course, essential to address Ukraine's financial needs. There should be no mistake. Belgium fully supports this. There is no place for any doubt. But there are different options to do so. We have repeatedly said that we consider the option of the reparations loan the worst of all, as it is risky. It has never been done before. It is not acceptable to use the money and leave us alone facing the risks. The proposed reparations loan is clearly not a preferred choice.
ICE is expected to ramp up operations in Minnesota ASAP.
They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you.
This comes after the Trump administration ordered the agency to target undocumented Somali immigrants in the Twin Cities.
Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason.
This morning, the assistant DHS secretary said that they are, quote, looking at the data and widespread fraud, and that this is about public safety. A U.S. official told CBS News that the agency will target hundreds of individuals with deportation orders. And today we attended a press conference that was held by the Council on American Islamic Relations, who say nearly 95% of Minnesota's 80,000 Somalis are U.S. citizens.
Somali American community being targeted in this manner is dangerous. We have already received from different people threats online.
And just yesterday, the mayors of both Minneapolis and St. Paul spoke out, saying that they stand with the Somali community.
We stand firm and rock solid with the Somali people here in Minneapolis.
WCCO is continuing.
The operation in New Orleans started today. One of the things that city leaders will tell you is crime is actually down. Total crime and homicides. But that action is still going to take place. Neighborhoods and businesses like this one are concerned not only for their customers, but for the people in this community. Signs like this are up already saying everyone is welcome here except ICE. But we know it's CBP that's coming to town, and you see that it's actually marked here as well. In this community, they're even telling people to act like it's COVID, stay at home, don't go to the grocery store. We'll have to see how this plays out over the next few days.
A defense company that's based in Brampton has secured a huge order to supply armored vehicles to the U.S. government. The $10 million rush order is for 20 armored vehicles. It comes as the agency in the states known as ICE is accused of human rights abuses as it carries out Donald Trump's campaign to expel large numbers of immigrants. U.S. government procurement records show Rochelle is the only company that could meet ICE's technical requirements and deliver the vehicles within 30 days. The contract comes despite Donald Trump's U.S. first trade stance and his push to poach plants from Canada's steel, auto, and manufacturing sectors.
Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country.
Agency in the history of the United States, to put some perspective on it.
Contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage.
Это центр Красноармейска. Российская армия его зачистила.
Rusya-Ukrayna arasındaki savaşın Karadeniz'deki seyri sefer güvenliğini açıkça tehdit eder boyuta geldiği görülüyor. Cuma günü münhasır ekonomik bölgemizde ticaret gemilerinin hedef alınması endişe verici bir tırmanmayı işaret ediyor. Bilhassa kendi münhasır bölgemizde seyir, can ve çevre emniyetini tehdit eden bu saldırıları hiçbir şekilde mazur göremeyiz. Bu tarz durumlarla ilgili tüm taraflara gerekli uyarılarda bulunuyoruz.